To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles and, by opposing, end them, to die, to sleep, no more. And by a sleep, to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to, 'tis a consummation devoutly to be wished, to die, to sleep, perchance to... Well, this just isn't right. Here I am, sat in my keep, Shakespeare in hand, on a pleasant autumn eve, and in spite of every condition being optimal for a lovely time, I cannot shake the feeling that something is missing. It's not my choice of reading material. I adore a little cheeky Hamlet. It can't be my location. My bed is of course the most comfortable spot for dramatic readings. Nor could it be the season. The autumn winds howl and rattle about my windows in a most applicably moody manner. My skirt is flowy, my blouse is poofy, and my neck is... Oh, that's it! That's what I'm missing! How could I possibly sit and enjoy my Shakespeare when my neck remains exposed to the elements and utterly unfancy? This must be remedied at once, of course, and it's a good thing I happen to know exactly what the cure for this particular ailment is. In order to engage fully in the art of being a pretentious git, I require plumage for peacockry, and since I've been handed a hoard of bridal fabric scraps and have the means to make them into whatever I can possibly dream up, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I usually begin all my spellcrafting with all sorts of plots and plans, sketching designs and doing research into techniques so no one gets too mad at me, but not today. We're going free form with this bad boy, so please prepare your comment typing skills in advance, because instead of wasting everyone's time over engineering anything, I'm just going to wing it as I create 3 completely historically inaccurate ruffs of varying levels of over the top. To start us off, I want to make an everyday ruff, something in a natural fibre with much less drama that does not get in the way of general life. The sort of ruff you could get things done in, like grocery shopping, or impersonating your lordship in jest amongst your friends in the kitchens, or subsequently decorating your severed head, because Mary blubbed to the court adviser for an extra sardine in her supper. So hear ye, here's how I start my ruff. Since these patterns are completely off the cuff, I start with my trusty neck measurement ribbon. If you don't have one of your own, you can make one ever so simply by wrapping whatever long stringy stuff you have laying about round your neck once, then cutting it to size. Every other measurement from this point I achieve by way of summoning forth arcane knowledge from the ether. That is to say, I eyeball them all. While I'm here, I may as well cut out similar size strips of this linen ramie for the other 2 cuffs, using the first as a guide. This bit will go in the interior of each collar, because I have a host of sensory issues and wish to avoid scratchy polyester seams coming into contact with my bare skin at all costs. To make this a proper everyman's ruff, I choose to use this cotton slub, because it's incredibly soft to the touch and has a marvellous texture to it. There's not very much left, but I shall attempt to squeeze as many gathers out of this as wizardly possible. To do just that, I line up my lining strip with my fabric of choice, double it up with a fold, and add a bit extra to determine the ruff width I'd like. Snip snip, now I can use it as a guide to cut whatever is left of the remaining fabric to size. I fold my long strips in half and pin them into a very long tube. I would say right sides touching, but I didn't keep track of which side was which, and I doubt anyone could really tell at first glance anyhow. I sew along the long edge but leave the shorter sides open. This is so that I can better torture the poor thing by inverting its insides to outsides and using a big chunk of steaming hot metal to flatten it after, which marks the hardest bit of this already very simple collar over with. Now I can do some gorgeous gathering with a running stitch right down the middle. Would that I could, I'd have kept these tightly ruched segments, but since this is all I have, I just gather as much as I can and then adjust it so it works out to be the same as my lining panel. A lining panel that I did not end up using at all. Anywho, to lock all of this into place proper, I grab a strip of elastic cut to the size of my neck measurement and make sure it is not stretched out at all. This is to avoid my silly neck ruff causing me silly claustrophobia when I put it silly on. Then I pin it across the centre of my soon-to-be finished ruff and bind them together forever in a zigzag stitch. Finally, I sew the end shut right sides together, flip it out, and attempt, rather unsuccessfully and out of focusly, to remove the running stitch I started off with. And presto changeo, here lies the springiest, softest little neck ruff that just pops right over your head with ease. Huzzah! Just before we move on to the next act, I'd like to take this moment to thank the members of my Wizard Council for their support. They're a strange sort who not only enable my crafting chaos, but also do me the honour of sharing their work in progresses, finished creations, and any anarchic anecdotes they may have. I usually provide this lovely lot with the patterns I make in each video, but in this case I did not make myself a pattern, nor did I record any measurements, so there shall not be any from this video. I did however take this chance to digitize my jester hat for you, and the next video up has a grand total of 3 patterns in the works so far, so never fear, more is always on the way. If you'd like access to all of my very unprofessional work and behind the scenes updates on what I'm up to in advance, please consider following the link below and joining us over on Patreon. Or don't, and just continue watching me make these Mac-Ruffs. Since I wish for my ruffs to escalate in dramatics, this one requires a little bit of spice. So I thought this bridal satin would be lovely for something absolutely chocked full of creamy ruffles. I start with the neckband by using my Ramy lining strip as a template and cutting a similarly sized scrap of satin, pinning them right sides together and setting them aside for now. I've watched exactly 1 video for neck ruffs in the past, which is what I'm using as a soft reference for how to make mine. However, this marvellous wizard is both talented and knowledgeable in the histories of such things, and I am not. So if you'd like to understand what I intend to do and what my reasoning behind it may be, please oh please watch this creator's video. I shall link it all over. I, being held to no such standards nor restrictions, just wish to make something silly. I chop out as many strips as my satin will allow and sew them all together with French seams to create the mega strip. But the mega strip has a mega edge that I do not wish to attempt using my rolled hemfoot on because I barely know how it works. So I cast scalloped decorative stitch as close to the edge as possible and burn the excess off. A dirty cheat of a spell that I'm regrettably far more familiar with than should be legal. Luckily, I do understand how to use my gathering foot, which I use to turn this panel of silk and ivory into a marvellous mound of ruffle. Words cannot express the joy that turning flat things into ruffled things brings, but imagine if you would John Everett Millet's Ophelia. Now replace all the water around her with ruffles in textures of all kinds. Then replace the plants. Then replace the rest of the painting, and you may have a brief inkling of an understanding of how I feel. Now it's as easy as sandwiching as much of this whipped cream as I can into the collar bit and sewing along every edge but the one at the bottom. While doing this, I make sure to pin the ruffles more towards the inside so they don't get caught in the stitching when I sew up the sides. Then I turn the whole thing inside out, stitch along the edge just under the ruffle to keep things shifting about, and close up the bottom. I add enclosures by way of an elastic cord on one end and a metal button on the other. To finish up, I press the ruffles into place, and then I have a bright idea! Words that I wish I had not uttered to you now, Council. You see, up until this moment, everything was coming along so well, so simply, that I began to worry. Was this too simple? Perhaps I needed more. Thus, armed with the excess ruffles overzealously gathered for this project, I added more. I stitched ever more unholy ruches onto my collar until I had a mountain of creme fraiche that could no longer hold itself up under its own enormity. That's all right, I assured myself. I'll just attempt to starch it. So I did. I whipped up equal parts cornstarch to water and stirred it on a stovetop until the mixture was a thick, smoothish, clear paste. I've never starched anything before, but at the very least I know it is usually reserved for natural fibres. I didn't even know how it would work here. I coated the whole affair in a liberal layer of starch, let it dry, and when I returned, the beautiful soft satin was now a stiff disc that I could not stand the feeling of. That's fine, I once again lied to myself. Everything will be worth it once I add in all the silly big loops. Once again I let my hubris guide me and made a makeshift neck stand out of a 2-litre bottle and some patchwork cotton batting, pinning my just barely dry collar to it. I even constructed a special tool out of a stick, some fabric, and an old aluminum soda can I had in my recycling pile, so I could use the heat of the iron to make it nice and warm and better form the loops. However, the chaotic ruching of the fabric avoided any and all shaping I attempted to impart upon it, and all I ended up with was a scratchy hard plate. All that effort was wasted. At this point, I felt incredibly low and unsure with how to proceed. I think a very important part of spellcrafting is the ability to simply know when to set a project aside. If you find your frustration growing the more you continue, it may be a good time to move on. Or There we are, much better. Since my heart cannot possibly take any more failure, I'm going to use this gorgeous lace to do all of the heavy lifting in this, my final ruff. You see, Queen Elizabeth is often depicted with this particular lace ruff, and my misguided thoughts lead me to believe that I can achieve something pretty close with this fabric. I'll only be using the lace from the bottom edge, as the other side may be just a wee bit too comically gargantuan for this ruff. So I start by chopping it into a strip and leaving a bit extra on one end so I don't end up hiding any of this prettiness in the seams. I then pin in pleats along the raw edge to create my ruffles. Do not bet your hat on it, Council, but I believe these are called box pleats. Please do feel free to correct me if I'm wrong though. I know literally nothing. To make things a little less stressful for myself, I lock my pleats in place with a top stitch before the seam allowance starts proper. That way I can hide it in the collar when it's assembly time. Now you may recognise this as the fabric I used for my everyman's ruff. That is because it is. I cut out a strip in advance to go along with my lace collar and hide the yellow of the linen raiment. If you didn't notice, now you do. I also chop out a chunk of scrap organza to go over the cotton slub layer and keep everything all matchy. Then I make the right sides kiss. Same as for my satin ruff, I sandwich my pleated lace in between layers of my collar, making sure to pin them out of the way so they don't get sewn in any strange positions. This lace is incredibly delicate, so I took extra time making sure everything was where it needed to be before closing up the sides, as seam ripping could do far more harm than good. That being said, I managed to make it out with my sides sewn shut and my gathers all free and flowy. Hurrah for little victories! I close up the bottom with an absolutely appalling top stitch, but that's not a problem at all, since I'll be covering the whole collar in extra lace scraps. I gather up whatever roses may remain in my discarded garden, cut the motifs out, melt all the edges to avoid fraying, and place them where they look prettiest, then secure them to the collar with a tightly bound top stitch. Here I do my best to keep my stitches hidden, but it's all white thread on white organza, so it did me the favour of being incredibly forgiving and turning out alright. And since I have far more beads than sense, I grab a couple of fancy Swarovskis from my inherited collection and add in little sparkles where I feel they fit. They'll only just barely be visible, but that's fine by me, since they're just the sort of subtle trick of the light glimmer I enjoy adding to anything I make. To close this collar up, I add a claw clasp on one end and this loop of chain from an old necklace to the other. Since I really would like this collar to stand up so that I may properly embody the spirit of a plate-swallowing bird, I'm going to attempt to starch this ruff as well. I follow all the same steps as before, but this time with no attempt to make the big loops in order to spare myself any further embarrassment. We'll just pretend I'm referring to this picture of Queen Elizabeth and her ruff and not this one. Hopefully that clip communicates that I was very happy with how the starching went, because we're all done now, and it's time to get a little theatrical. I'm so happy all of these turned out okay. My favourite, in spite of taking the least amount of time and effort, is the everyday ruff. It's absolutely plush against the skin, and it adds a touch of whimsy to any wizard's wardrobe without making me want to claw it off and toss it into a corner. Please consider making one of these for yourself. I would love nothing more than if neck ruffs caught on and everyone started wearing them. I do love the dramatic lace ruff, though I absolutely did not starch it correctly and I had to pin it to the back of my head for the shoot so it would stay up. I also failed, on all accounts, to recreate the iconic loops that make the neck ruff so recognizable. My satin cream puff ruff almost got itself cut from the video entirely. Had I left it as it was, it probably would have sat in the deepest recesses of my hat box for the crimes of being abhorrent and ugly. Washing the starch out and leaning further into the poofiness of the fabric by gathering it back down against the collar was the right thing to do, but it definitely was not my initial plan. Something you would not have known if I did not tell you. Yet I do feel compelled to leave it all in, as I believe there is honor in sharing failure. Not every project goes perfectly, and pretending it is so does not help others see that that is okay. There are so many people who may be hesitant to even start making or try anything for fear of failing. It's all good and well saying pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, but the reality is that I am human, and I mess up a lot actually. I tried techniques with none of the correct expertise or tools, I couldn't leave well enough alone, and I ended up with an ugly amorphous thing that took extra effort to correct. But in doing so I learn, and that is an important part of spellcrafting as any. The sting of defeat only festers into long-term pain if you allow it, so we march on ever forward. Smarter than before, hopefully. While this project was very simple, I promised that this was only to allow for additional time to work on the next few, so please stay posted, Council. I think you're really going to like what I have in store. Until then,